When we started to be aware of our decisions that would affect the planet, I guess it had to be when we were taking a walk down on the beach here in Hawaii. And it was Sustainable Coastlines who were talking to us about all the microplastics. I think that's when it hit me the hardest, when you'd see them come out with big bags of all this trash. And I was like, wow, man, that was a huge beach cleanup or whatever. They're like, no, we just went through with like these little nets and like got all these microplastics and they all fit in the bag. And they're like, we barely made a dent. And in that moment, I asked them a couple more questions about it, like what caused it, where does it come from, how does it happen? And they were telling me it was single-use plastics is the single most prominent way that happens. And so that really kind of got into our minds. And then spending a lot of time on the North Shore, it's something that's a conversation that's always very present. Quite a few people on the North Shore that really inspired us in our journey, and one of them was Kahi with Sustainable Coastlines. I mean, it would be any big surf event, big or small, you'd see on the North Shore, you'd see him and the crew from Sustainable Coastlines making an effort to help keep that event be sustainable. The other one is Jack Johnson. I mean, we heard a lot of his music around, always saw him talking about no single-use plastics and doing it. So you'd see Jack Johnson shopping on any random day in a market and he'd bring a reusable bag, or if he was gonna buy soap or whatever in the store, he would select items that came in glass rather than plastic. And just seeing that someone who was talking about that and advocating for it was actually walking the walk was really important with me, which is something you rarely see these days. One major thing for us was we tour a lot as a family with our band, and it turned into a huge ordeal to try to do that sustainably. One simple thing we started doing was just simply bring a water bottle. And if you travel as a large family on road trips, bring a bigger water bottle. You'd be surprised how many spots there are where you can fill them up along the way. One of them is like, go to a gas station, go to a soda machine, fill it up with ice and water, and just keep rolling. I was trying to do our part to make a big difference in the world.
My name is Wes Carter, and I'm the president and third-generation leader of Atlantic Packaging, a company founded by my grandfather in 1946. I'm also a husband and the father of 8-year-old twins and a lifelong surfer, traveler, and outdoorsman. And I've seen firsthand the devastation caused by plastic pollution in our oceans, lakes, and rivers. Today, Atlantic is the largest privately held packaging company in North America, and we support companies in almost every manufacturing vertical, which gives us the unique ability to use our influence to help the supply chain transition away from problematic packaging that threatens our global waters. A New Earth Project is a coalition of outdoor enthusiasts, industry-leading brands, and innovative packaging suppliers all working together to solve these problems. Because it's about all of us, it has to be. Please join us on our journey to a new Earth.
The thing that struck me is how passionate Hawaiians are about the ocean environment. You know, they like to say water is life. In speaking to a lot of the indigenous Hawaiians and understanding the culture and learning about the Ahupua'a system, which was a regenerative form of agriculture that the Polynesian people established to produce food. And the way the system worked, as I understand it, was in balance with nature. And the way that it worked, that balance created food in such abundance that it allowed time for the arts. It allowed surf culture to arise and hula culture to arise. And that entire aloha culture was really born out of indigenous knowledge. And that was a powerful moment for me because we talk a lot in packaging these days about circularity. You know, when you hear the word sustainability, it's usually followed by the word circularity. How do we create circularity? And in our culture, that feels like something new. But being in Hawaii, what I realized is this isn't new. We're returning to knowledge that humans have known for a very long time. Many ancient cultures, many indigenous cultures all over the world have always understood that balance with nature was what created abundance in life.
Scientists estimate that there's 30 times as much plastic on the bottom of the ocean as there is floating on the top, 30x. There's a lot floating on the top. The problem when it's out of sight, it's kind of out of mind. On some level, thank God a lot of it floats, because at least it's giving us a signal that, hey, this is a big issue.
But then we get into politics and logistics and financials. And the Hawaiian value was all about, can I take care of you? Can I take care of grandma? Can I take care of grandpa? Can I take care of the ocean? The land was all about caretaking.
Unsustainable, problematic packaging, environmentally unfriendly packaging is a huge issue. How can we say that we're a brand that cares about the environment when every single thing we ship out has products that don't break down or that aren't curbside recyclable? You know, it just doesn't jive. How can we say that we're a brand that cares about the environment when every single thing we ship out has products that don't break down?
At the end of the day, there are a lot of parts of the supply chain. There's a lot of plastic packaging that makes great sense. I in no way believe we ever want to replace all plastics. I think that would be a disaster. Where it's problematic is single-use plastics that ends up in the hands of consumers. We just cannot control where that stuff ends up, and a lot of it ends up in the environment. And unfortunately, that means it's in our oceans, it's in our rivers, it's in our lakes. There has never been a time in my memory where I didn't know that those plastic rings were a problem, choking sea life. We've known this. If you go to, some third world countries where they don't have the infrastructure that we have, you really see it up close and personal. But, we're here in Hawaii, a U.S. state, and I can turn around and walk out on that beach and there is plastic, microplastics all in the sand. It's everywhere. I believe as humans, we have a responsibility to be good stewards of the earth. We're part of this earth. We are connected to all living things.
Circularity and balance with nature has been something that humans have understood at different times in our history.
And you look at any civilization that developed the arts and music and sports, it shows that they were affluent, that their society was thriving. Hawaiian society was thriving because of this system known as the Ahupua'a system. The Ahupua'a system is essentially an incredibly sustainable system that channels water into these very productive systems of growing taro primarily, but a variety of other different types of foods. The real ingenious part is these auwai, which is basically diverting these streams, would come back into the ocean, and at that juncture where it hits the ocean, there would be these large fish ponds. And we're talking massive fish ponds, like 4 or 5 football fields, some of them very large.
The natural world, nothing is wasted. There's plenty of trash. There's plenty of trash. Plants rot, trees rot, but none of it is wasted. It is this incredible balance of circularity. And so, I don't believe that as human beings, although we are a part of that circularity, we are in that circle, obviously. But as we create systems in our world related to the products that we buy and use every single day, the perfect thing to mimic is nature. I mean, we've got the greatest example of circularity all around us all the time. And so it's sort of like the universe is giving us the roadmap.
And they'd be, these large rock walls, and they'd have a gate. Interestingly, that gate is called makaha. And the makaha would control which fish could come in and out of the gate. And it was essentially, aquaculture in its early forms. And because of that, they had such an abundance of production of food that they were able to have all this leisure time to develop the arts. Surfing, music, dance, and a lot of other cultural elements in Hawaii thrive because of that extra leisure time.
Terrified to see what I'm standing in. You know the situation. You know that I
Fishbone is a really cool story. So these inventors came up with this concept to replace the polyethylene rings that we've seen on six-packs and beverages for really all of my life. They were looking for a company, a large packaging company, who could help them take this product to market.
It's all about managing your watershed. You know, water is life. And that's why, you know, when we talk about water in Hawaiian is vai.
The Fishbone product is a paper-based product, and it is fully curbside recyclable. So that means when you take it off of your beverages, you can put it in your blue bin, and it will get recycled with corrugated boxes. You know, that's one thing, especially in this country, where we do really well is recycle paper. And a lot of that's because we have so much corrugated. And the e-commerce boom, everybody's getting more corrugated to their house now. So that's something we can recycle really well. And a Fishbone, it goes right in with the corrugated and gets recycled and reused.
So when you say vai means a lot of water, or it can be interpreted in what we say kauna, which is the hidden meaning of richness.
If it does end up in the environment, it is going to be gone in about 12 weeks. Obviously, it depends on if that's on the side of the road or in the ocean, but that product, it's made of wood. At the end of the day, it will return to its natural form. It will dissipate.
You know, so if you had vai, you'd be rich. So rich for us wasn't monetary. Rich for us was about life, was about water, was about, you know, sustainability, food, you know, the process of life, you know, creation.
I mean, that was a surreal experience for me to walk up to Bob Hurley's house and, you know, have a glass of water on his back porch looking at pipeline and discussing sustainability. Like, I mean, every few minutes I had to go, is this really happening? Is this what I'm doing right now?
We met this girl, Melody, in Bali, and when she was 16, her and her friends wanted to clean up the rivers. Well, you don't do anything in Indonesia without asking the government. So she went to the capital, Jakarta. She said, hey, for free, we want to clean up all the rivers. We would like you to say it's okay. We don't want any money. We would just like you to say it's okay. He's like, what are you talking about? You want to clean up the rivers? She's like, I can marshal all these high school students and just go clean the rivers for free. You need to say it's okay.
Well, it'll go back to normal.
No, I'm not going to say it's okay. I'm going to offer you the Indonesian army to be at your disposal to clean these rivers.
That quick.
He goes, hey, we're not going to start a war anytime soon, and I don't think anyone's going to start one with us, so they got to be doing something. Let's clean the rivers.
Wow.
Yeah, they're very serious.
We're a very large company. We sell a lot of plastic products. There are certain areas of the supply chain where plastic packaging makes great sense. It's very efficient in certain applications, but you know, there are also areas where it's really problematic.
Yeah.
And we have to acknowledge that and say, hey, listen, we're not pointing fingers. We're not trying to beat anybody over the head. We're just saying, let's stop doing this.
Yeah.
It's like when Henry Ford invented the automobile. He didn't do that to pollute the air, but that was an unintended consequence. So with where we are today, with all the visibility we have of pollution, I just think it's time for, as an industry, we got to stand up and say, guys, we have got to shift our priorities away from convenience and cost, at least in part, to more sustainable options. And so, you know, one area, I mean, those six-pack rings have been choking turtles since I was a kid.
Shoot, I'm going to be looking for this. The best thing I've ever seen. Are you kidding me?
There were some things that, as I was watching, something to me changed at that moment in this journey, because here it was to go hang with some surfers, kind of make some connections, get some insights, you know, boots on the ground. But then here's Fishbone, and you're talking to Bob Hurley, and it seemed to me like when you left that trip, something triggered in you that this packaging idea, not just on beverages, but packaging in general, it seemed like when you got back from that trip, something, all these years of your entire life of who you are, from the warehouse to the beach to Hawaii, now all of a sudden something, it seemed like something cemented on, like, you have an overall packaging problem. Overall packaging problem.
You are correct. I think looking back, you know, now looking back on how this thing has developed, the meeting with Bob illustrated to me that this community can be really passionate about this.
On the next episode of Journey to a New Earth.
We're like, how can we get like a tube where we can just have an air pillow, like slide a board inside and just, and then that thing's biodegradable somehow or whatever, just like anything that we can do.
The surfing community has been looking for this. You know, they have been frustrated with a packaging problem.
We're willing to pay more to ship something. We're not afraid of doing that, but it has to be like, it can't be crazy, and it has to be efficient and effective.
Packaging products, just all kinds of non-sustainable things throughout the supply chain that they witness every single day that, you know, on some level they feel like they're powerless to do anything about.
And helpful.
Sure. What the goal is, like, there are going to be areas where certain materials may cost a little more, but if we can offset those costs,